But there is one question that came in for Stephen, which I think is directly relevant actually to both colleagues here. And I just wonder if you'd like to talk a little bit about how you see, from any of the evidence that you have, the value of staff development itself, because it seems that one of the big issues isn't about necessarily how the young people are going to use it, but how the teachers are going forward. I know you've done some work on competence, but is there any way in which we've actually been encouraging people to go through processes of learning better for themselves?
Maybe I'll share with you concrete experiences. We are working with the World Economic Forum on education initiatives. It started with the country of Jordan, followed by Egypt, and now they are moving to other countries. A lot of partners were there, a lot of investment was made, millions of dollars. The biggest hurdle in both places was the teacher, not the students, not the parents, not the infrastructure. It was the teachers. The skills of the teachers, number one. Second, the motivation, the business models themselves, not just the skills. So there was a missing link. For example, in a country like Egypt, because it had a huge population, the teachers' pay is so low that they cannot make a living. So the way to make a living is to give private tutoring. And then there is this whole new industry now to get high school diploma, is that the students don't even go to school. They go to private tutoring sessions, go to the teachers at home in groups. It's a way for the teachers to make money. The students find it attractive to get better grades, to get better training, which they don't find in school. So now in a situation like this, putting computers in school won't cut it. Giving them lectures won't cut it. They have a stronger problem, which is the financial issue. So this is also something I want to add to the mix. It's not just the skills. On the other hand, when people have the right motivation, I don't think you need to train them much. In the same country, if you see the revolution in using mobile phones, it's quite stunning. The GDP is low, but it wasn't a barrier. They bought it. They pay the bills. Even people who are absolutely illiterate find enough reason to buy a mobile and enough ingenuity to use it. So I guess motivation is also a crucial element, the deep belief at the user side that they really want this. If they really want it, they do it. So I guess how to generate that excitement, how to impress on the teacher that's good for them, teacher is more important than thinking of forcing them to. In Jordan, the government decided to enforce skills training. And they used to go just drag their feet to go there so that they don't get fired or anything, but they weren't motivated. So I guess both have to go together.
Okay, thank you. Francesc?
Yes, I agree with Tarek. I will probably simply use a different word. I would talk about lack of incentives, simply. And I think that the most interesting incentive for a teacher is, well, one could always say that it's economic, but in my mind, it's probably professional. It's related with the knowledge. And I think that if we are able to provide teachers with the right evidence showing, for example, as Becta, for instance, here I think is trying to do, that using ICTs in the right way really pays off. I think that teachers are, prepared to use this. It's simply that they are lacking the right system of incentives. Part of this is related with the lack of professional knowledge. Part could be also a problem related with how their professional careers are designed in many countries. Let me just, to add to this, let me share with you that the way in which OECD or SERI in particular works takes very much on board what we call international expert meetings. And just to share with you some of the upcoming expert meetings we're going to have, all of them with the cooperation of OECD with OECD countries, are, for example, next week we are going to have one in South Korea on the relationships between digital technologies and educational performance. In 1 month we are going to have another one on video games and school education. in 6 months, another one on gender, and finally, 1 year from now, we are going to have one which is extremely related to this, which is about the use of ICTs in initial teacher training, because probably of the problem could lie in the fact that some teachers lack the vision, because when they have been studying in teacher training colleges, they haven't been in a way they haven't been asked to use intensively these kind of technologies that thereafter we expect them to use while they're in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. The questions aren't coming in directly in the same way. We have got a roving mic, so if anybody does want to ask a question, please raise hand and mic will appear before you. I've got one other that's actually on the system at this minute, but I'm just sort of planning ahead. Is there a question over here? While the mic's getting there, just let me ask this next question, which I think has probably come out of your comment, Francesc, about the PISA study and the comparative bit about where the maths comes. And it seems to me that there's a couple of issues around, is it because we're testing the wrong things? Or, and perhaps for both of you, have you any evidence of testing other things? Please.
Well, I guess Francisco will say more concrete stuff about that, but I can't help but share with you experience about my own children. They are both born, they're 17 and 21. So they are not really young, but they are from the generation that is so familiar with technology. Now, the boy had trouble consistently in traditional schooling, in conventional schooling. Yet, you know, I'm his father, and all fathers think their children are great and bright and smart, but no, he has no problem whatsoever in terms of assimilation of information, to the extent that he was offered jobs when he was in 10th grade. He was making more money than a university professor consistently, steadily, working with ICTs. The employers didn't care whether he had a degree or not. His skills were proven to them, so he got from one job to another. If he goes back to class, I force him to go back to class, he fails across the board. He gets F in every subject, yet he gets jobs outside. So I was sure that there is something wrong. How do you assess this boy? And he's not alone. There are so many of them who seem to only work in areas that they are interested in, motivated about. They don't like the classical structure. So what does the certification then means that we get in schools? And that forced us to study. We had a big event in Germany last June, where we assembled what we call visionaries, about 20 people, or very senior in this area, and we asked them about the future of learning in the next 20 years. They have really thought very hard, and we came up with a declaration and things like that. A basic outcome of that is the need in the future to think of new ways of measuring knowledge, call them knowledge norms. How do you assess somebody for knowing something? People learn not just in class, they learn outside. I told you I was a professor of engineering, and now I'm working in a job that is pretty much on technology. So many people think I had a degree in computer science. I know how to program in like 6 languages. It's all self-learning. So now that doesn't show in my certificate. And many kids today also know a lot more than what their certificate says. So I'm sure the assessment area needs a lot of thinking. What are we really measuring here?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think that your question is really relevant. But I have to say that, for example, what PISA tests is really what governments ask we to test. I mean, it's about you. It's not about us. In a way, yeah. Not personally. So in a way, we have different boards, and these boards decide upon what kind of competences. It's not related about content. It's more related about competences. So in the end, what PISA measures is the result of a a kind of an agreement or a consensus between OECD countries' governments. Now, let me give you some good news regarding this, because in the next PISA round, which is going to be in year 2009, so almost 3 years from now, we are going to use computers to run some tests. And that will, I'm sure, will have an enormous impact on the assessment, not only in terms of the technologies being used, but also in the kind of competencies that are going to be tested in a way. The second good news regards the fact that next week, as I told you, we are going to have an international expert meeting in South Korea, which is partly, at least, going to deal with what kind of other things should be testing in the light of the knowledge society that we are not testing now.
Thank you very much. And question over here?
Yeah, it's just going just back to initial teacher training. Internationally, there is a problem, with preparing, teachers for using new technologies within the classroom. It's the same in this country. PGCE students are required to do an ICT competency test in order to pass their actual PGCE, and that's apart from doing 2 practices within schools. I mean, it's very, very intensive. There's a lot packed into that year, but it can't prepare potential teachers for the use of new technologies. There isn't time to actually prepare them for that. And I think we really need to re-look at the PGC programs and really look at where technology plays a part, and perhaps extend the program or look at continuing professional development for new teachers when they actually start teaching. Because what we're doing at the moment is we're relying on teachers to train themselves or go on extra courses that they feel would benefit them, but we're not giving opportunities to new teachers. Existing teachers, there are CPD opportunities if and when schools will actually offer that to them. But unless it's taken up, or if you have managers or senior management who aren't willing to develop ICT technologies within their schools, there are limited opportunities there. But I think we need to be looking at our initial teacher training, because I think we're losing, a great opportunity there, to really develop, a fantastic resource. And I think it's something we really need to look at.
It certainly is an interest, even within the initial teacher training, the concept of continuing professional development in areas where the technology is moving so fast. And that's, of course, is one of the challenges that continues throughout. I suppose if I just pick up on that and ask, really, is there any evidence that you have of any country where they've actually stopped the technology advance in education? Because one of the challenges will be that the technology is keeping moving on, and we're looking at how different technologies that here we're talking about as the handheld technologies that perhaps we wouldn't have been talking about certainly 5 years, 6 years ago. But is there any country that you're aware of that's going, let's just stop?
I'm trying to understand the question. They try to stop because of...
They're trying to say that from an education point of view, we don't need the technology, we just want to just go with whatever it is we now have. Francesc, sorry.
Can I respond to that? Because it touches, again, my heart. It's not exactly the kind of answer you are expecting, but I have to confess that during the past 5 years, OECD almost stopped any kind of work, analytical work, related with the use of technologies in education, because countries, OECD countries, ranked very low as a priority, the work on ICTs. So fortunately, now we are working on the new Millennium Learners, but we are looking at this from a very different perspective. It's not anymore about the use of technologies, it's not anymore about investments in technologies, it's more about the changes that learners are bringing into schools. So So I'm afraid to say that your question has a difficult response, but in a way, the fact that we stopped working with this during 5 years, it's an indication of that.
Yeah, an impact. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to move on, but can I just ask you therefore to thank both Francesc and Tarek. Thank you for that international perspective. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Hope to see you again.